Welcome to Body Bags presented by the Kokomo Lantern. My name is Jeremy Geiger. I'm a co-owner of City of First Cremation and Funeral Services. In today's episode is a continuation. It's day 2 of the Indiana Funeral Directors Convention. This day was really neat for us because this day consisted of 7 hours of continuing ed. We have to have 10 hours in the state of Indiana, 6 of those general hours, 4 of those being law, and then we have to have 2 additional hours for OSHA, but nothing too exciting there on OSHA training. But this morning started at 9 a.m. and we got to have a pretty cool speaker. His name was John Hill. He runs an embalming institute. He wanted to talk to us about embalming, and it kind of went in connection with that first day we were there, dealing with decomp bodies. That is something that's becoming more prevalent in the funeral home industry. People are living longer. We're fighting some really tough diseases most of the time. Our bodies are breaking down. It's kind of interesting to see, honestly. You can go to the hospital and maybe get somebody that has only been passed away for an hour or two, and they already have blisters that are forming on their body. Years prior to this, I didn't maybe see these blisters or some of this beginning stages of decomposition as soon as we are. And I think it's just because of the medical side of it, where we're able to keep these folks living longer, where their actual organs are sustaining them, but their body's still trying to shut down. So he kind of talked to us about case analysis. These are things that we kind of learned in mortuary school, and I will say each embalmer's better than the other at it. It's kind of funny to see some of these embalmers. They may have just that one tried and true solution mix that they put in the embalming machine. I've seen some of them, they run 2 gallons. I've seen some run 3 or 4. I typically am a 2 to 3 gallon person, but sitting through John's classes kind of made me change some of my mind. So he kind of asked us, starting out the class, who's the best embalmer that you know? And nobody was really willing to answer that question. And John said, well, each one of you are the best embalmers that you know. It's not an ego thing. Well, that makes sense, because it's not an ego thing, but you're trying to provide your families the very best that you possibly can. So if you don't have the confidence in yourself that you're able to take care of whatever the case situation may be, you're not going to be able to be confident with your families when you meet with them. And I'm not trying to say be overconfident either, but be honest with your families about some of the things that you may be encountering, and be proactive on trying to address those things. So in the decomposition side, delayed embalming, we're typically getting bodies within 2 to 4 hours after they pass away at the hospital. But sometimes we deal with situations where donor network may get involved, and that person may not get to us for 12 to 16, 18, 24 hours. And heaven forbid if we end up at a coroner's office, depending on which coroner's office that we would be in, it could be several days before we get this person out of the coroner's office. So yes, we have refrigeration. We're able to slow things down on that decomposition side. But with some of the diseases and the prolonged life that people are living, we are running into this decomposition still being so active and being progressive on us. So he showed us some techniques that maybe facilitate the draining when we're trying to embalm. So we're injecting a formaldehyde-based solution into the body, and we're trying to flush out that blood that's in that vascular system. When you're embalming, you can kind of tell, I think, when you're getting close to the end of things, because you're maybe seeing more fluid return, less blood. You can smell the formaldehyde a lot stronger than you could at the beginning. But it was neat to see how he showed us. He uses a particular cannula that he put down into the jugular vein in between the angled forceps, and it was 18 inches long. And I thought, holy cow, 18 inches long? That's forever long. Why would you need to do that? He had actual videos to show us why it was important. He even showed us on somebody that may have only been down for an hour or two, and somebody that had been down for like 3 days, and he was embalming them. It gets right down into that atrium. That cannula has an open area at the bottom, so it's truly pulling these blood clots and giving them an avenue to disperse out of that vascular system, so that way it's cleaning out that vascular system so much better and not leaving blood behind, because that blood is just going to create issues for us for long-term embalming. It's going to create staining. It's going to accelerate decomposition for us. So it was kind of neat to see that on the drainage side. On the actual injecting side, where you're mixing your solution, when we were in school, they kind of told us the average person is 2 to 3% formaldehyde solution, and we have a little fancy solution calculation that we put in. It's the index and however many ounces of water we're using, and we come up with this percentage of a solution. I think it's important, but I've really never gotten too wrapped up on, am I making a strong enough solution? And I still kind of feel that way, that it's not super important to me, because I know that I can't get away with just using 2 bottles of 25 index arterial solution to 2 or 3 gallons of water. It's going to be a very low percentage in solution. I know if there's medical issues such as renal failure, or maybe they had a heart condition and they were full of edema, and they're just so saturated with water that my normal solution is going to be diluted down so much that I need to overcome all that waste that's in that system to get to a higher solution, so that there is actual preservation taking place. Another thing that he kind of talked about was, how long is preservation? So when we were in mortuary school, our definition for embalming was temporary preservation of the body. Well, everybody wants to know, like, what's temporary? Like, are we talking 3 days? Are we talking a week? Are we talking 30 days? Are we talking 45 days? What's temporary in the eyes of the person? And John said in his eyes, you need to be able to hold that body for a minimum of 30 days after the embalming. He feels that's temporary. So if you were to run into any legal issues, or maybe even family issues where they may be out of town for work or vacation and you've got to hold them. There are certain places in our country where it gets too cold and they can't bury the person. So you're going to want to make sure your embalming's really good, so that way the body's not breaking down. You never know. A family may ask you at some point during that time, can I see them one more time? Be honest with them. If it's okay, show it to them. If you've had to fight issues such as decomposition or dehydration, those are typically the 2 main issues we encounter. Explain that to the family. Hey, We've got cellophane over grandma's face. We've been applying moisturizer or some kind of humectant to keep the skin hydrated. Or, hey, we've had to take grandma back out of her casket because she had a bed sore that is starting to smell. We've got some decomp issues. So we thought it'd be best to take her out of that casket and dress that specific area, treat it with the chemicals that are necessary, and then obviously some deodorizers to try to help that. So that was kind of the neat thing, talking with him on the delayed side and the decomp side. He was doing these embalmings that most people would probably struggle with because of how long they'd been down and how coagulated the blood was in that vascular system. And he showed us some neat techniques with the fluids. So there is a pre-injection, a co-injection, and the actual injections. So the pre-injection, I've never really done a whole lot of it because I felt my chemicals were maybe buffered well enough that I didn't need to really prepare for anything, unless we were talking maybe somebody with jaundice where they were really, really yellow. When you embalm somebody with jaundice, if you introduce too high of a percentage of formaldehyde, you will turn them green, like almost Incredible Hulk color green. They're preserved. You just got a lot of makeup to overcome to make them presentable. But John, he told us we're all making a mistake, that it's so important to just get that vascular system ready to receive the formaldehyde that you're about to introduce. So he's putting in some humectants, he's putting in some water correctives, he's putting in an anticoagulant in this. In our books, we talked about running in a gallon or so of fluid. John said no, he runs no more than a half gallon. He mixes a gallon up, but he only runs a half gallon. The other half gallon, he just adds water and the rest of his arterial solution then to get ready to inject. So it was kind of neat to hear his explanation. You know, the vascular system has been dormant for several hours when you're getting ready to embalm. So getting it prepared, filling up those tissues with fluid to prepare it for the receiving of arterial fluid is extremely important. You don't want any searing of the cell walls or the capillaries because you introduced maybe a solution too hot or too high in solution. So yeah, that was really neat to hear on those embalming sides. He told us not to be discouraged if you do end up with a 6-point, and I try not to get discouraged when we talk about doing a 6-point. Those 6 points that we're mentioning would be the left and right jugular and carotid vein, axillaries underneath each armpit, and then each femoral artery, which would be located in your thigh or groin area. He talked about doing autopsy cases because sometimes these delayed and decomp bodies are coming from the coroner's office and they've been autopsied. And I've seen this myself when I've embalmed. The big Y incisions open and we can access the iliacs, which would be really superficial or really high up onto the leg in that groin region before it bifurcates to the femorals. That we're only getting maybe distribution into that lower thigh and the buttocks and not really getting down into the leg. I've tried closing the vein off and try to create more pressure so that way it diffuses down in there. And he said, no, you're never going to get there. He says you're going to have to either get a really long cannula to beat that bifurcation to get down in that leg, or just do what we normally do when we make an incision in the femoral area to raise that artery. Make the incision, take the extra step. Yes, you're gonna have a little extra sewing, but your results are gonna be so much better. And it was so neat to see some of these families that got an opportunity to maybe see their loved one after 30 days. Because his funeral home is very busy. He says that he's typically 2 weeks out for a funeral service when somebody passes away. So it's just neat to see and hear how other funeral homes operate, what their kind of funeral schedules look like, and how they prepare their deceased for funeral services. You know, when you're not getting the best preservation, you'll see us put them in refrigeration to kind of slow things down so we can get more length of time. And John said, no, if you've done your job right, they don't need refrigerated. Don't put them in refrigeration unless we're talking extreme length of time, because the last thing you want to have is an issue that's out there. And then we took a lunch break and we got to walk the trade floor. We did the silent auction. We checked on some of those things. If you follow our Facebook account, you'll see that Kim won the Mr. Miyagi signed picture. I got 11 from Stranger Things picture signed. I'm going to give that to my daughter. And then we got to walk that trade floor. That'll be the next episode, and I'm going to kind of go over some of those neat things that we've seen and some connections we made. And then we went back into class after lunch, and we got to hear from the owner of Disrupt Media. Ryan is one that I follow on social media. I'm a big fan of what Ryan does because it's not your normal funeral director thoughts or actions. So Ryan doesn't typically wear a suit. So when we seen Ryan on Thursday, he was wearing a pair of black leather cargo pants and a pair of white and powder blue Nike Dunks. He had a matching Tiger Woods hat and a Nike shirt. It's pretty cool to kind of see somebody like that. Kim and I, we showed up. We were jeans and t-shirt, just like you would catch us any day here at the funeral home. But everybody else around us is in that casual or professional business attire. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. I support it if you're comfortable in that, or if that's what your employer says you must represent. But Ryan definitely helped me see that it's okay to be who you are, and your families will appreciate that a little more. So to see him that way, and to see some of these other funeral directors, maybe his responses or some of their comments after class was pretty cool. They all appreciate and highly respect Ryan. He kind of helps us with our social media aspect of funeral service. Not too many funeral homes and funeral directors are willing to get on a platform like you're getting here from me today. But it's definitely important for our industry to share what we know to you consumers out there, because unfortunately every one of us is going to have to go through this process. We're going to have to deal with a funeral home or a funeral director or a crematory. Some of you may have to even deal with the coroner's office. So I'm glad you found us and you're kind of hearing what I have to say about it, but it's super important that we share our message with you folks. So that's what we're doing, and Ryan's trying to help what I call our dinosaur generation understand and realize its importance. So there's some things that Kim and I we thought we were doing well on, and sitting through Ryan's class, we're slacking pretty bad. So we're going to try to right that ship in our eyes and provide people with some more content, give them more opportunities to approach us, whether it's at the funeral home or if you see us out and about and you just want to say, hey, or I got a question and I was too embarrassed to maybe ask it on one of the YouTube channels or YouTube episodes that we've done. or maybe even I was too embarrassed to even call the funeral home. But always, always know. Go out to your funeral director when you see him. They appreciate it. They don't maybe want the public recognition, but they want you to know that they're there to support you and willing to answer all those questions. So Ryan kind of went over how Facebook works for us, kind of how their algorithms work on how creating content and getting viewers, and how those viewers share to other people, and how it just becomes one great big, I don't even know what he called that, how it becomes one big, I guess, calling it viral videos, I guess is what it is. And not all funeral homes do that, create viral content, because typically when I think viral content, it's the casket falling out of the back of the coach because they didn't get the door latched, or they forgot to maybe set the pin in the back of the funeral coach. But there's positive viral content that's out there, and Ryan showed that to us. And it was kind of neat because we were seeing maybe some of these stuffy funeral directors be who they really are, and it was really cool to kind of see, and then to see the people in their community connecting with that content and sharing it to their friends, or even just commenting on that video and asking more questions, was really neat. So that was convention. Pretty boring, actually really boring. Most uncomfortable chairs that I had to sit in for 2024. Yep, it's June and I'm calling it already. Most uncomfortable chairs. Lunch, not the greatest, but it was food. Not gonna complain. It filled my belly. Some really good hours of education that Kim and I were able to receive. So we've got everything that we need for this licensing cycle except 3 hours of law, and we will get those online. And then next year we'll be hitting up convention again to see what other new ideas there are, and see if Ryan has any new information to kind of help us with our media and getting our message and story out there for families to know what funeral service is about and what us funeral directors kind of experience on a day-to-day basis. So, convention, yeah, kind of boring. I tried to warn our intern that it would be boring. She didn't believe me till after we got done with day one, and she said I won't be back for day two. But Kim and I, we toughed it out, and it was pretty good. Day two was definitely way better than that day one situation. But yeah, that was that. I want to share a story with you guys about an instance that we had. So we do a lot of pet cremations. We don't necessarily do them in-house. We use a third-party vendor. They take them up to Ossian, Indiana, which is pretty nice for me because I don't have to continue to worry about running that machine along with our human side. But we've been pretty busy on the pet side of cremation. But Kim and I, we had a pretty unique call the other week, and I would just want to tell you some of that situation. Kim will tell you, if you ever ask her what was the scariest removal she's ever been on, and she's going to reference this moment. So I got a phone call one evening for a gentleman who lost his service dog. He served in the military as well, had a very long connection with this dog. He left for a couple of days and put a friend of his that he thought he could trust responsible of his pets, and something terrible happened, and one of them passed. The gentleman was very distraught when he contacted us. He just needed help because the Humane Society wasn't able to help him. So we offered our services, and we arrived at the house. He did warn us that the animal was pretty large. It was around 120 pounds. it's not easy to handle a dog at 120 pounds. A human's a lot easier, in my opinion. So we get into the alley and we meet this gentleman, and he's pretty distraught, very, very distraught, honestly. His house wasn't the cleanest. His yard was pretty chaotic because he has 4 other dogs, and he did not want us to go in through the front of the house. He said it would be best through the back because of these other animals. And we get into the backyard, and we're getting ready to go up the steps, and this gentleman, Kim has her back towards him. This gentleman is in the house. He is yelling. He's very upset. I can't see what's going on in there. There's no lighting. I could just kind of see some shadows of him moving. Kim's getting pretty anxious, and I'm telling Kim, like, it's okay. You need to lower your cot. We need to go up the stairs. And she's just looking at me wide-eyed like, no, we're going to die here. And I kept assuring her, it'll be okay. And we stepped foot in that house, and I thought, oh shit, this is not a good situation. There was feces all over, there was urine everywhere. We couldn't get our removal cot close enough, so we had to approach the animal and get him placed in a bag, and then carry the bag to the removal cot to then get out of the house. Come to find out, the gentleman had his wits to him. He wasn't having a mental breakdown. He was talking to these other dogs that we couldn't see. And he kept asking us questions about how the dog died. Did we think that it was abusive? Did it kind of correlate with what he felt had happened? I felt pretty comfortable with what he said transpired with his pet. So we did get him cremated, and he is coming to get his animal. He hasn't been back yet, but we know this gentleman. He's got a pretty full plate. He's got a lot of things to work through, and we're not too concerned. But very interesting to walk into a situation like that. The odors were overbearing. It was not pleasant at all. Later on, Kim referenced that she felt like it may have been a scene from Saw, if that kind of puts things into perspective of how bad it was. But we got in, we got out, and we were able to make this family happy, and they're going to get their dog back, which is important. So that does conclude my services here at City of First Cremation. I'd like to thank the Kokomo Lantern for giving us this opportunity to have the Body Bags podcast. So please like, share, subscribe, leave any questions, comments that you may have for me, and I will answer some questions in the next episode. So once again, thank you all for being here. Bye.